Hey y'all, I am bringing you an episode today that is near and dear to my heart for a lot of different reasons. My guest today is Emily Thomas. She is the host of the Mom Struggling Well podcast, which is a super fun podcast about moms who struggle. Been there, done that, yeah. But they're learning to struggle well. So be sure to check that out. But we really deep dive beyond that. And we talk about her early 20s when she met a man quickly and decided to marry him quickly, and it did not turn out to be what she thought it would be. And she talks about her experience in an abusive marriage. She talks about the early months that are wrought with infidelity and how she eventually had to literally and physically escape the situation. And this is what's really special to me about this episode, that she loved and loves God. She believes the Bible. She is a committed person. She was not looking for ways out, but she found herself in a situation that she had to grapple with, make a decision about, and then she helps me understand as a church leader how to best love and help people who are coming out of divorces, who are in the middle of divorces, who come in with blended families. And I'm believing that this episode is going to help us all have more empathy for those people as they are going through or have been through what she describes as a gut-wrenching experience. Because we're Christians, and y'all know me by now. I'm always challenging Christians because that's what I am. And it's time to, as Christians and especially as leaders, to take away the shame and the guilt and the stigma that comes with all of those things and love and help heal and help restore those who've been through traumatic, really difficult situations. So we also talk about her 6-year struggle with infertility. We talk about her going through the adoption process, and she has 2 awesome kids now. And she talks about her current husband, who's incredible. So, God can turn her story around, and you're going to hear about it in this episode. So enjoy my girl from Mom Struggling Well podcast, Emily Thomas. Thanks for doing this today. I'm so excited to talk to you again. And so you are a lot of things. You used to be a teacher, I found out.
Yeah, hold on. Are we recording?
Yes, we're recording.
Did we already start?
We're recording now. Yes, we are officially recording now.
I just wasn't sure.
I'm here with Emily Thomas.
Yeah, so I used to be a teacher. My first job was teaching inmates who were juveniles, but they were being tried as adults for murder. Because even a kid knows you shouldn't kill your friends at a party. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Mm-hmm, yeah.
Kind of basics,
most
things you learned in kindergarten. Yeah. But
don't murder.
Don't.
Yeah, let's not.
Just go have some more punch, you know?
Yeah. Or
it's not murder.
Just
take
back
a walk
away.
around the block. Let's just
back away from murder. Just
does anybody have a hacky sack? What can we can we play jacks? Don't kill each other.
Let's not kill each other. Okay, so this is where this was your first position.
Yeah, I was 22. Okay. So I literally did my student teaching in the jail. And the inmates were cool. 14, 15, 16 years old. But they're required to be, have teaching because they're
Was it
juveniles.
Male and female?
Mine was just male. And they were rival gang members. So we had to...
This is Dallas?
No, it was in Arizona.
Arizona, okay.
But we had lots of different little gang members, but I loved it. It was really hard to get their motivation up because they were going to be incarcerated for 40 years. So to teach them math and help them understand that it was important. But we got them closer to their GED, which gets them to be able to take college classes. And so good things happened. You know what I mean?
Right.
I learned a lot. I really, really loved that population.
Did you love those kids?
I now see gangsters and I'm like, oh,
come here.
So
come
sweet.
here.
I know.
Really that's amazing. Oh, I love that. So after that, then you went into nursing?
Well, after that, my husband and I moved to China and we taught Chinese university students for a while. And then throughout that time, we were trying to get pregnant, and we never did for like 6 years. And so that really was hard for me. I didn't handle it well. I don't know who handles infertility well, but
for sure.
I know I'm not one of those people. So I just, as I was waiting for a family to start, I decided, I really wanted to go into nursing. I liked teaching, but in nursing, there's so much teaching, like patient education anyhow. And I have all this time now because I'm not growing a baby. So I went ahead and went to school and became a nurse in that time. And now I'm a nurse. I'm a psych nurse. I work specifically with eating disorders.
Wow. Oh, cool.
And I love it.
How did you fall into that? I'm going to backtrack on your life, but do you have a heart for that?
I think I have always struggled with depression and anxiety. Yeah. And so being someone who struggles with those things in the church, it's not always, I don't know if you know this, but we're supposed to just like pray it away.
Oh, yeah, pray it. Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah, if you just fast one more day.
Try harder and have one more faith.
Day. Yeah.
And,
oh, jeez. Yeah.
I've got to be honest. There's a part of that where we do just have to go, I believe in God or I don't. I believe he can do these things or I don't. So there is a part where we have to like put our feet to our faith.
100%. But then there's another faith plays a part.
Yeah, but there's another. It's like the pedals of a bicycle, right? They're both 100%. Equally important. But your brain is an organ, and just like your kidney, and we would never shame someone for being on dialysis because their kidneys are having
when
problems.
Somebody has a cast on their arm, we don't
go, are you kidding me right now? So you don't love the Lord because you have an arm cast? Anyway, so I just feel passionate about the role of the tools that God has given us in the form of medication as needed, and diet and, exercise. There's so much that goes into it. But we don't need to be ashamed for having mental health issues as Christians.
100%. My husband, he is a lot of things. He's amazing. He's incredible. He's the most amazing person I know. You know how we have to qualify what we're about to say. The best. But he overworks. And he wears himself out, and he has given his whole life has been a lot of stress. And so 10 years ago, he ran himself into the ground and just living off caffeine. There were no Bangs yet. I don't even know if there were Monsters yet, but it was Red Bull, it was coffee, literally probably 15 a day between the two. And his adrenals failed. His immune system was completely shut down until his body just passed out one night. Wow. And I was like, oh my gosh, what, paramedics coming in, is he been drinking? No, just caffeine, just Monster or Red Bulls. Wow. And so he passed out. This is all getting back to your thing about food, which is really cool. Because we went to get him tested and we had his blood drawn, all these things. And all of it came back for him. Now, this is not everybody, because some people need heavier doses of different things. But his food intake and his diet and the caffeine. And for 1 year, he went off caffeine. He went on a totally organic. He never ate a piece of chicken that I know of that was not grass-fed or just rebooting his entire body. Yeah. And it worked.
So good. I love that.
I was shocked. But the power of the food that we ingest, not that that's going to fix all of our problems, but that's cool that that's your kind of your background on now being a nurse with, in eating clinics. Yeah. That's incredible. My mom's a nurse and my sister's a nurse practitioner, so I love nurses.
Yeah, I love them too.
Oh my gosh, when I have my C-sections, I have two boys, 2 C-sections, and my husband and my mother had to drag me out of the hospital. I wanted to stay forever. I never wanted to leave. Because the nurses, they make me feel like Wonder Woman. They're like, you're amazing, you're brave, you're strong. My mom and my husband are like, you need to get out of here and get on your feet. You need to circulate your blood because you're gonna. And I'm like, no, just let me lay here with the nurses for one more day. Oh my goodness. So all that to say, I'm a big fan of nurses. But okay, that's really cool. So let's backtrack on your life.
Okay.
And then we'll get to where you are now. Tell me where you grew up in Arizona?
I did, yeah.
Okay. And your parents, were they together? Did you grow up? Okay.
I grew up, I believe they divorced when I was around 10. But they weren't like necessarily together even before that. Do you know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It wasn't good.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a lot of like substance abuse and
from
like
mom and dad?
Primarily dad.
So did you have a good childhood? Do you feel like? Was it happy or?
I think that it was. I have a lot of, I'm really type A. I'm wound up pretty tight. I have a lot of anxiety. And so my impression of how things went, I always want to have a lot of grace for my parents. I think now as a parent myself, they were doing the best they could. I know that because I'm doing the best I can and it goes sideways a lot.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Oh, I do. Yeah.
I think I felt a lot of insecurity and instability in my home life. I did not always feel safe or cared for or supported, but I don't know that was what was happening as much as that was what was going on inside of me.
That was your experiential reality of it all, though. Yeah.
It sure was. And I know I know my parents loved me, but I know that was where I was. And so that kind of factored into what I know you want to talk about with me getting married to.
Yes.
The guy, I always had a boyfriend starting at kindergarten with my little boyfriend named Albert. We used to play Frisbee and never didn't have a boyfriend because that was what to me was the ticket out of what I felt like was a lot of chaos.
Yep. Yeah.
And insecurity. I felt like having a husband would make life less chaotic. The chaos I saw of a single mother, never having enough money, never having enough help. I was going to fix that by never not having a boyfriend. So that I would eventually have a husband. Does that make sense?
Sure. Yeah, yeah. So from kindergarten on, it was boyfriends and the goal was don't be single.
Yes.
Get married.
Because here's the deal. I didn't want to be a single mom.
Yeah.
Well, how about just don't become a mom? Like, it didn't occur to me that if I don't have kids, I'm not a single mom. But I just saw my vision.
This is so real, though. Yep.
So dumb. Like, think it through. Whatever.
Oh, man. Do you have a good relationship with your mom?
I do.
No?
I do.
So you're in Arizona, and when does your first husband come into the picture?
Okay, so I went to school in Southern California. I went to college there, and I had changed my major a bunch of times. I had actually changed colleges a bunch of times, but I felt like what needed to happen was you get a 4-year degree, and it takes 4 years. And so I was taking like 21 credits a semester. I was taking the summer, the winter. Like I pushed myself, it sounds like your husband, to like almost death to achieve what I've decided will make me okay.
Yeah.
And so at the end of your 4-year degree, though, you get married, right? And
were you at a Christian
I've always
college?
had these boyfriends. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so
it's extra emphasized.
To
get married.
Yeah.
Like this is This will fix everything.
Again, I had thought that since kindergarten and my first boyfriend. So I wasn't about to give up that long-standing belief that I had. I wasn't challenging that. But of course, throughout college, I never had really had a boyfriend. Tried as I may. I did try. It just didn't really work. Anyway, and so by the end of it, when I was about to graduate and didn't have a boyfriend, I was like, this isn't going to work. So, and I wasn't like, that sounds bad. Like, I wasn't like out walking the streets looking for a guy. But it was just something it consumed you? That was a missing link.
Gotcha.
That I needed for, to be okay. So anyway, I was working at a coffee shop and one night this guy came in and he was beautiful, like 6'4". He was British, like stop it.
Yeah.
I couldn't even handle it. And, and so he was a mutual friend and he was in town and we had a mutual friend and they just happened to come into my place of business where I was a barista and we just hit it off immediately. And then the next night we went out on a date and what happens when your brain is not fully formed and you're still just in college and
the frontal lobe is still at work, right?
Still at work, we went ahead and got engaged that night because that seemed like the right thing to do.
Oh,
He
wow.
professed the love of the Lord, and you can just tell that it fit into my timeline in that I needed a boyfriend. So I wasn't a single mom, which doesn't make sense.
Which anyway. Didn't have kids. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Anyway, and so we ended up going back to his country, and we got married, and it just was really not healthy. I thought I had done like all my due diligence and found out like who were his people and whatever. But when I got there, I realized like he didn't have people. I was very isolated. The people who did know him, especially the females, they were afraid of him. He would kind of fly into rages, and he was very religious. To the point where he'd just kind of open his Bible to tell me that I needed to submit, and that, all those things. So he had all those,
the tells,
all those marriage things. Yeah. And so it was just a lot of abuse, like emotionally, definitely spiritually, sexually, all that kind of stuff. And so, and that only happened for like, gosh, we were married and together for about 4 months. And in that very short period of time, I was praying, because I was also like, I'm not getting a divorce, because that's another thing I saw as my parents' weakness, was that they got divorced, because I had elevated that, like the unforgivable sin or whatever, because God hates divorce. But if you read the next part of that verse, it also says he hates when there's like like when the man is violent. He hates when he hates all those things, like all that stuff's not great equally, And so I was praying that I would be hit by a truck, or my husband would be hit by, like, I prayed that to escape some way we would die in a way that didn't have to end in divorce. I didn't even care if I died. Like if it was him or me, I didn't care. I just wanted out. And because we were 22 and
you'd rather die than do something that was ingrained in your brain would be an unforgivable sin.
Yeah, because I really wanted to please the Lord. And I really thought that what I was doing was pleasing the Lord, out of my insecurity and my broken way of thinking about my identity and my value. And I thought it had to be with a guy. So that happened.
Can we pause?
Yeah,
that happened. Can we pause on this? So can you, because, I pastor, it's a large church. I hear stories of women who are in abusive marriages and men who are in abusive marriages. And like, what did that look like? Because I know that where you are now, hindsight, is 2020. What didn't you recognize, or what didn't you see? And what you know what I mean? And what contributed to you staying? Yeah. And then what contributed to you staying? And then I want to hear the story of you getting out of it.
So it happened really quickly. It happened in somewhat isolation, in that he was back in his country. And so it was like online, and, you can really be whoever you can curate who you are in that, and only show your good sides. And so it needing to happen speedily should have been a red flag. But honestly, I was pushing that too, not because of, so it just ended up being like a really bad mix where everything happened. But I think you should know their people. How does he treat his mother? How does he, because what I found out later was he was complicit in helping his father abuse his mother. So he didn't like women, but I didn't know that, you know what I mean? So really get to know his people and take your blessed time, because there's zero reason to rush. And there were things that I was like, I don't know about this, but I just like pushed them all away. So all the red flags, I like would hide them behind my back before anybody else could see them. You know what I mean?
In marriage and in dating? I guess you didn't date that long though.
We didn't date that long, but even in that, like there was some things where I could have known that his mental health wasn't solid, but I wanted to help. And I really, and so if you've got to help somebody through like the most basic things, you've got to take a step back in that way.
Yeah. Take a breath. Yeah. Oh.
Yeah.
Did you love him in those first time? How many years were you actually married? Did you say 4?
Oh, no, 4 months. Like the whole
4 months.
in the grand
So your entire
escalated,
marriage so quickly.
It did. Like he was portioning my food so that I wouldn't get fat. He had so these are things like inside of a marriage. Like I wasn't allowed to have a cell phone, but he had a cell phone. And you got to understand, this is like 25 years ago. So that was like, cell phones were just like kind of becoming a thing.
Yeah.
And he had one and I couldn't. I had a job and he didn't need to. So he had all the freedom and I had none of it. And I got to tell you, like, I'm pretty independent. I was raised by a single mom. It's not as though I thought, oh, that makes sense. It didn't make sense, but they make it make sense. To where I really thought I was going crazy because everything was, he would accuse me of things that didn't happen. So you really can't be good enough to like, I couldn't make him stop being mad at me. I wasn't allowed to wear makeup. He thought I was too like provocative, which I'm telling you, I feel uncomfortable in a tank top. I'm like more Amish or Elizabethan era. Like I like am so modest, but he felt like
you weren't up to any of this. Yeah.
I was up to zero bad, you know, but if I was on the phone, he was sitting next to me. If I was opening my email, he was sitting next to me. Opening my mail, he was right there. And so just if you're constantly being monitored and if you're not allowed to have friends, like I got asked to lead worship at church and he didn't, so he destroyed my guitar. Like things like and then acted like, why are you being so upset? Like everything was my fault. It didn't matter. Like up was down, down was up. And when you live in that for so long, it starts to make sense. And I was writing in my journal, like, I am wicked. Why am I so terrible? Like I came home and my friends were like, you literally talk different. You act like a different person. So there was a lot of like deprogramming and reprogramming to where I just had a season in my life where I was like, I'm just going to listen to people who love me. I'm not going to even try to think through it because my brain is so messed up. So there was a lot of that healing that came afterwards.
And you're a baby at this time, right? What are you, 22?
No kidding. Yeah, 22.
22, living in a foreign country, no cell phone, being monitored 24/7, and you can only leave the house when you work for him.
To go to work. Yeah.
Okay. Man.
Yeah, but like, here's another thing. If you have friends and they try to make it difficult for you to go to things or try to like even make it to where it's your fault or it's just, oh, look what accidentally happened and now you can't go to your friends. Or if I did make friends and go out because I'm very social and I like people and people like me and it's great. Like, so I'm trying to like build my life there. He would either come with me to my girlfriend's to have coffee, which just so you know, that's not normal. Or he would come early and pick me up when I was supposed to walk home or, you know, stuff like that. So it was just, I wasn't allowed to be unsupervised. That's not normal. And I think if you're in an abusive relationship, you start to think it's either normal or you're just trying to make things at home not be so bad later.
Yeah. And then when you put faith on top of it, and if they can open up their Bible and take something out of context, then you have guilt and shame.
Well, and I went to the pastor and I was like, hey, so I'm afraid of this guy.
Did he threaten you?
Yes, he would threaten to kill. A lot of it was threatened to kill himself.
Oh, that's
again. But we got to the point where I knew he was about to lay hands on me, and you just know in your gut. I do not think that people are about to hit me. I don't think that I'm about. I'm not that person who always feels like I'm in danger.
You're right.
But
Totally,
I knew it was really getting. It was really getting close. And he was so much bigger than me that I knew if he decided, even he'd say stuff like, I could really hurt you with this knife. And it wasn't like he was trying to, it was like he was becoming aware of his own ability to hurt me. It was almost like he wasn't, it's like he didn't know he said it out so loud. He was it was really crazy, the stuff like that. Or we'd be in a fight and he would yell, I'm not going to kill you. And I was like, whoa, we weren't even there, dude. But you were there in your head. Do you know what I'm saying?
Oh man.
So it was really something. So anyway, I went to my pastor.
Yeah.
I did all the things to
sure.
like raise
because you love God and you want to do what's and you loved him, I'm sure, at that point, or maybe not.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was in it to win it, man. Like this was not something I took lightly, this marriage vow, but my pastor just said, you know what? God hates divorce. I'm like, I know, I read that too. And then he goes, and I used to abuse, he told me he used to like be abusive to his wife too. And basically like, so it's all cool though, because like now I'm a pastor and it's fine. So just go home.
Yeah, because being a pastor makes everybody perfect.
Yeah. And if you used to abuse your wife, like, could you give me an additional support? Could you connect me with your wife? Like, is there something that we could?
Heart-wrenching.
But it didn't. Nothing happened. They just told me not to do it. So anyway, I was at work one day and I really didn't. I honestly was, like I said, considering death more than divorce. Divorce wasn't anything I was even considering. And I didn't realize how bad things had gotten because my brain was so turned around.
You've been programmed, kind of. Yeah.
Absolutely. I couldn't. I still can't believe how quickly it happened. It's alarming. So anyway, I was at Starbucks, and this is just the Lord at work, and I'll try to concise this a little bit, but I was back at Starbucks.
Is that where you work?
Counting the money. Yeah. Okay. I worked at Starbucks. And I was counting the money at the end of the day, and there happened to be a phone there, but like international phone calls, and I'm not good with numbers, so I didn't even know what that number was. And like I said, I didn't have a cell phone. I never was like on that phone or anything. Well, there just happened to be this girl who I went to college with, and she grew up as a missionary. And being like a fairly new Christian, I felt like she was more holy than me or something. Like I just really looked up to her. I really respected what she said about God. And she was like one of my best friends from college. Well, so I'm in the back in this, and we have like, I don't know the time difference, 12 hours or something in England. I'm not sure. But anyway, I'm back there for like 10 minutes a day.
Yeah.
And the phone rings in this office that I never am in. And I answer it, and it's this random friend. Not random. What? It's definitely the Lord. But she called me and she goes, hey, I just feel like things aren't right where you're at. And I just want to tell you that divorce is not the unforgivable sin. Like, if you need to get safe, you need to get safe. And that was the first time that I ever even considered it. And it had to have come from that girl who I really looked up to her relationship with the Lord. Does that make sense? Couldn't have come from anybody else, because I would have been like, oh, you don't even know what you're talking about. Yeah. But I was trying in my very limited and very monitored email interactions. I thought I was portraying everything as fine because I was just trying to hold it together. She saw through it. She across the ocean, across the time zones, in a place where I'm not even able to be communicated with without being monitored, except this one random couple moments she called at that time. I can't even imagine. Like, that's such the Lord. Yeah. So I was like, okay, well, that was really something. So I went to my husband and I was like, listen, I need you to go to counseling. I don't feel safe here, because he had destroyed my guitar. It was like the size of a toothpick. He had like put it all around the apartment and then acted like, hey, how you doing? And I'm like, okay, so something crazy just happened here, but he wouldn't acknowledge that. Like, I don't know if you remember the movie Sleeping with the Enemy with Julia Roberts.
Sally Field. Julia Roberts. Yeah, no, you're right.
That was what I was doing. Like, I was looking behind. I didn't know what door was he behind. It was a horror film from that moment on. So I was like, I tried to get him to counseling. I took a couple days and stayed with like a friend, and he would say everything he needed to say. And then as soon as we got home, it didn't change. And this only probably took about a week of being like, things aren't right. Like, I'm super not safe here. So, I just decided I was going to try to go away. So I had to get my passport. I had to get my credit card so that I could go. And the only time I was allowed to leave the house was when I went to Starbucks. And by this time I am like in charge of the Starbucks. So I've got the keys. And
Oh,
I had
wow.
to go really early. So I'm leaving really early. I slept with my passport on me and my credit card because when he thought I was trying to leave, he tried to destroy them. He like bent my credit card in half and he had my passport and I like jumped on him and I'm like trying to get my passport away. It was like a movie. I couldn't even believe it. So I
This
like
must
slept
seem
with,
like a lifetime ago.
it
Like,
doesn't even feel like it was real.
it does.
Like it literally doesn't feel like it was
oh,
real.
Man. Oh,
And so I slept with them on and I was like, hey, so I got to get up and go to work. And so I got up and went to
so
work.
did you just start to play a role?
Oh yeah.
Keep him
All of a sudden
calm?
you're like, okay, so like he's my captor. He is a lunatic and he's going to kill me. And so you just got to play it like super chill. Everything's fine. And again, this only happened in the space of, this was like the last, 6 hours, 10 hours that I was there. So I was like, doing everything I could to stay safe and just keeping my documents on me. And I took my Bible and I took the home phone because I knew Starbucks, when it didn't open, they were going to call and wonder where I was.
Oh, man.
And I needed to all of a sudden I needed to be
so
gone.
that was
by
like
then.
a landline.
Yeah. So I took just it was a cordless, but yeah, I took that with me. And I went to work and I just, I had tried one time earlier, like the day before to leave, and he found me and brought me back. And so I knew that I had to I just tried again the second day. And so, but where we lived, I had to first get a train and then I had to get to the airport because I was nowhere near an airport.
Jeez. You don't have a ticket?
No, I don't have a phone. Like I have no way to there was nothing online. So I just was like, okay, Lord, I'm not trying to divorce this guy. I just want to get safe so that we can build a life with people that I know around me that can support us. Man. So that was where I was at. Like I was just
You're not even trying to divorce him.
No, I'm just trying to get safe.
You're just trying to get safe. Oh,
yeah. Yeah. And so I remember walking, and it's like a constant fight or flight, right? I just vibrating. You're like so on it was just so scary. The cortisol is pumping through my veins.
Yeah.
So I walked past my Starbucks, which I loved. I loved my job, and I was like, oh, bye Starbucks. And then I kept walking to the
hopefully, right? Hopefully, bye.
Yeah. I hope I never see you again. And so
I love you, but I hope
I know.
Yeah.
So I walked to the train station and I said, Lord, I need a train now because I can't, he'll come find me. Yeah. And so then
and you have the phone, you have the house phone with you still?
Yeah. I just have my Bible and I had the house phone.
That's
and my
what you
credit card. That's all I had. I wasn't allowed to pack. I was in my Starbucks outfit. That's how I left everything literally had in my life.
You took your landline, your credit card, your passport,
and my Bible.
And your Bible. Oh, God.
And so I go to the train ticket man and I'm like, hey, I need a train now, please. And he goes, oh yeah, this one's leaving right now. And so I buy the ticket, I walk on the train and the door shuts and we move. And I was like, oh Lord, okay, yes, let's do this. So then we get, and I wasn't out of the woods yet. And I knew that because he knows where I'm going next. And so I've got to be on a plane. So I get to the airport and I buy the ticket and I'm buying, I bought a round trip ticket. Well, no, I think first I bought a one way. I can't remember, but I bought a ticket and I went and I had gotten right out of I wasn't allowed to get a haircut. I guess he liked if my hair was long or whatever. I think I got out of the shower and didn't even brush it. I had lost a ton of weight because he was not letting me eat. And so I looked rough. Okay. I bought a ticket to leave immediately back to the States. I had no luggage and I looked rough. And so they flagged me as a terrorist. Because 9/11 had just happened.
Oh, man.
And so they were like, hey, we can't let you on this flight. And and I knew enough to know, play it cool. And you can't freak out, but inside I'm like, I'm going to die. If I have gotten this far and nobody here will help me,
you're in trouble.
I got to get out of it. Yeah. And so I just very calmly explained that I've got to go. And so I said, here's everything I have. Here's my home phone. You can have it. Look through my Bible. They literally looked through every page of my Bible to find a bomb. I'm not sure what they thought they were going to find. And then And then they said, okay, well, why don't you come over here and sit with us in this area? I said, cool. So I went, and it turns it was like the pre-boarding area that you got to sit in. And they were like, and then they never told me anything. I didn't know if I was getting on the plane. I didn't know if I was being interviewed. I didn't know what was happening. And then these other people who were pre-boarding, they were like, the women and the children and the people in wheelchairs and everything. And they were like, why are you here? I'm like, I don't know. And they said, are you famous in America? I was like, no. Do I look like I'm famous? I look like I'm 100 and so stressed out. Anyway, I get on the flight, and it was when you still like had your actual ticket, like a seat assignment or whatever for an international. I don't know how they do it. I fly Southwest, where it's just like a cattle car, but whatever. Yeah. So I go, and they look at my ticket and they go, oh, and then they hand it to someone else, and then they're like, oh, and I'm like, what is happening here? And so all of a sudden, they finally hand the ticket to this lady named Hazel. I'll never forget her name. It's Hazel. She had like the brightest blue eyeliner on. It was like shocking, but cool. And so she's like, hey, go ahead and come with me. I'm like, okay. So I came with her. They had bumped me up to first class. They had made a whole row of like 6 chairs for me to lay down on.
Oh my God.
This is how bad I looked, that the airport was like,
they're like, wait, they don't want you to die on their flight.
We will fashion for her a bed.
We will fashion.
Oh my gosh.
They just need to get you there alive.
I know, right?
Oh, Emily.
The paperwork that's involved if this girl dies on the way. No, and so anyway.
It's not funny, but
no, I mean, I must have looked so rough. So then Hazel was like, do you like wine? I was like, well, I guess I don't really drink wine. She goes, well, what kind do you like? I'm like, I have no idea. So she brings me 3 different glasses just to try them all out. I'm like, what is even happening right now? So then she sits down with me once we're in the air, and she goes, I just want you to know that I escaped an abusive relationship, and you are doing the right thing. I was like, are you kidding me right now?
She could spot it.
Yeah, I think they told her, I guess, which is why I got bumped up and all that stuff.
Yeah. Oh my
And so it was just such the Lord's kindness. Even like I didn't look at the red flags. I barreled through because I decided this was right. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And God, even in his just grace and kindness, even after all that shenanigans, was like, listen, child, I love you. You were operating in the best that you could, and it wasn't right, wasn't great, was not that impressive, but you were trying, and I know you want to honor me, and so we're gonna get you home. We're gonna get you home safe. And I was reading Psalm 55, and it was about how, I'm gonna kind of forget, I'm gonna mess it up, but basically that he took me from an unsafe place and set me down in a safe place, and that it was incredibly painful because this wasn't my enemy who was out to get me, but my friend who we worshiped together. So it was just the picture of my marriage. But anyway, so
wow,
I got home safely by God's amazing and abundant kindness. And I tried to sort out how to bring him over to where I was and how we could.
So you're still willing to work this out?
Oh my gosh, absolutely. Not because I wanted to with him, but because I made a commitment to the Lord.
Yeah.
And so he wasn't willing, and he was incredibly abusive over the phone even. And he just let me know all the other women he had slept with and how much better they were than me and all these things. And so I was like, well, I'm not sure if we're on the same page. The whole time. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But he still wouldn't divorce me because of it being
control.
Yeah. And so that was just a whole nother thing to try to divorce somebody from overseas. It was hard, but God was faithful in I don't know. I had to come to the point where I realized God hates divorce. Right. I do too.
We all
C.S.
do.
Lewis says nobody loves it. Nobody loves it. C.S. Lewis says that it's like an amputation. Like you're literally losing part of. I cried every single day for a year. Like it was horrifically difficult. But as much as God hates divorce, he loves me more.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to come to the understanding of like, God's character is such that there's forgiveness. There's even for that, you know? So anyway.
You said it is gut-wrenching pain.
Yeah.
To even in your situation when you kind of came to out of the programming, right? Like, did it still hurt?
Absolutely. I mean, I honestly, here's another thing is that I thought, okay, cool. God is not mad at me. He likes me because that's like the right thing for God to do. Wouldn't it be very godlike to like decide he didn't like somebody? So I felt like he like let me in on a technicality, or, you know, I felt like he's like, fine, you can be here too. That was what I thought God thought of me. To be honest, I think it's what I thought he thought of me before the divorce, but I think the divorce was just me going, yep, disqualified, but I still get to be here. So thanks for that. But so,
like you're a B-list.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. So anyhow,
and would you say, keep talking. Do you feel like most women or men who have been through divorce would agree with that feeling inside Christianity?
I think, for me, that was just so true. There wasn't like a 22-year-old divorced Christian girl club that I could join. There wasn't. I felt like the only one. I really felt like I had messed things up forever. And so whenever, fast forward a couple years, I started dating the man who is now my husband, and he wanted to go into the mission field. And I was like, okay, well, I'm happy to go. But I didn't even realize this, like that I was thinking this, but God's not going to use me, but I can go and support you and help you be used by God. Do you know what I'm saying? But this is another thing, just God's sweetness to me is the day of my divorce was June. I think it was July 13th. I think so. But that was the very day that I had the privilege of leading one of the girls that we were ministering to the Lord. Was on the day that I thought I was no longer of use to the Lord. He was like, no, girlfriend, like this. And it was a day that only mattered to me. Do you know what I mean? It was
for sure.
Such a sweetness of God. Like, so things like that where I just have jumped up and down and tested the promises that God literally will turn all things for good to those who love him, or are called according to his purpose, Romans 8:28. I've jumped up and down on that promise and found that it
you stomped it into the ground.
Me. It holds me.
Yep.
You know?
Yes. Oh my goodness. So when you get back and you're still trying to work it out, and then you realize like he's been cheating the whole time. This is a pattern of abuse. You need to get out. What are you now? Like 20? Are you still 22?
Yeah, I think that whole thing happened within like 22 and then into the beginning of my 23rd year.
So did you, I'm trying to imagine, because you're like you're super intelligent. You're super smart. You're super, like you're not like some wild like cannon out there just, doing like running amok, right?
Yeah.
And so what was it like at that age to feel, I would imagine, I don't want to put words in your mouth, so correct me, like life is over?
I did, like literally the vision I had was of train tracks that just stopped.
Yep.
Like wherever I was going, I'm no longer going anymore. It felt really bad. I went to a lot of coffee shops and just journaled and prayed and cried and I had the margin to do that. And so I took it. I went to counseling, and the counselor's like, I don't think you know who you are. I'm like, yeah. And so she said, why don't
Tell me something I don't know, right?
So she had me make like a journal of me. What colors do I like? What patterns? What textures? And it was just a journal of like, she said, get a bunch of magazines and just cut out things you like. You don't even have to know why you like it. And it was so amazing to take that time.
You're building yourself.
Yeah. So that's what I did for several years after, just kind of like rehab for me.
Yeah. Because I would
good.
imagine during the marriage, you just formed, you shapeshifted.
Absolutely.
And so now your counselor is saying, like, find your favorite color.
And I was like, I have no idea what you're even talking about right now. But I did it and it was really good. But again, like you've got to get to that point where you're not trying to think your way through things. You've got to get to the point where you're like, I'm going to depend and trust the people around me who love me because I am in no place to make choices right now.
Man, that's real.
And it was a scary place to be. But as I look back on it now, it was really a beautiful season. To be kind of poured into and ministered to. Yeah. And I think to go back to what you were saying, like, were there signs?
Yeah.
I think that my first husband, he said things with such authority that I just believed him because he said them. And so that's another thing, is just to test things in the wider community of people that know you well and love you and they'll tell you the truth, plus test it against God's word. And just do not, with my husband, my current husband, we've been married now, I think 15 years. I'm really bad at numbers, but
I'm too,
something like 15. I can't out test, like I can't, he holds up to all the things, like all the scrutiny, you know what I mean? And if somebody loves you, they don't mind you testing things because they want good things for you too. Like this current, my husband who I have now, I really wanted to learn how to cook. And I felt like that was something I wanted to do, but I didn't know how to do it. And everything I made was a disaster. And so he was really good at cooking. So I would come home from work and he would have measured out all the ingredients and he was like my sous chef, right? So that I could just pour it in a bowl and bam, look what a good cook I am. And so I can... I'm ready for my own cooking show. But so juxtapose that to the guy who he didn't get asked to lead worship, so he destroyed my guitar. Like,
oh man,
your person should set you up for success because they love you.
Yes.
It should not always be you setting them up for success so that you don't get in trouble. It's very different.
Fear base.
Yeah, absolutely.
Versus love base. Man, that's so good.
Yeah. And I even had like people in ministry tell me like, your second marriage is never going to be as blessed as your first marriage was because so there's just a lot of shame surrounding like remarriage. And so I struggle with that a lot and I even told God, listen, we got through this divorce. My bad. I'm so sorry. I'm just not going to get married again. I did it, tried it.
You're going to pay penance kind of? Was it like a...
I just thought, well, God doesn't like divorce, but it says, I didn't want to be an adulteress if you get married again. Like there's all kinds of shenanigans that go into that. And it's hard to tease out how the Bible plays out in your real world messy situations.
Oh, geez, right.
When you still want to hold up with all of the honor that God's word is true. And we don't just get to pick the pieces that we want.
No. Right.
And so then it's hard then to say as a divorced and remarried woman that I want to honor all of scripture, but I do. You just have, it's a lot deeper than just, anyway, it's complex.
It's very nuanced. Yeah.
But I got to tell you that the Lord has continued to use the abuse in my daily life. I can spot an abused woman like a mile away. And, I'm able to share my story and I get feedback and emails saying like, I got me and my kids out of our abusive relationship with my husband. We're safe now. And so I know that God's using it and I appreciate that.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. Can I ask you a like really complicated question? But just, I don't have this on the sheet at all. Actually, I don't have a sheet, but on my brain sheet, I don't have it on, but I'm just genuinely curious because I feel like you're, so many years evolved past this. Looking back, what was going on with him?
I would I'm not a psychiatrist, but I would say, if nothing else, some personality disorder stuff where he was so horribly abused by his own father.
Yeah.
That he wasn't able to understand the beginning of one person and the end of another person. Like he'd use my towel, my toothbrush, everything that was mine, he also thought was his. he thought I was his. Like it just, there was a lot of confusion about boundaries were not a thing. Yeah. So there was some definite hardcore abuse that he endured. And yeah, so there's resiliency.
Tell me about it. Okay.
So,
yeah. Tell me about that.
So I think that something I'm learning about is there's like a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. Like to think
okay.
that there's the way I am, I'm always going to be that way. I can't change it. A leopard doesn't change its spots, right? There's that school of thought.
Yep.
And then there's a school of thought with like neuroplasticity. We can change the pathways in our brain.
Yep.
Plus the fact that we serve a God who's in the business of restoration and not just put a Band-Aid on it. It's not as bad anymore. It's not actively bleeding, but I will restore things and make them better than they were before. Plus, you know, in Joel, the promise where he says, I will restore the years of the locusts.
Yes.
You know, and so he is in the business of making things new. And so I do not believe that it is a thing that you can't get past. Like I'm currently dealing with this. I have 2 adopted kids and with adoption, it's all beautiful. You know, a large percentage of it is, but the underbelly of adoption that people don't post about on Instagram is that it is just fraught with loss. I didn't get to have the pregnancy experience. I did not get to have the baby that looks like me. I didn't get to have, I'm not the only mom of my kids. I don't even get to be the only mom. Like there was so much loss for me, but that's like pales in comparison to the loss and grief that happens with kids. And so my kids right now, one of them struggles with attachment. She has reactive attachment disorder. So she doesn't attach to people correctly, or in a way that would be considered healthy. And so, you know what? I don't even remember why we're talking about this. Got it. Change and growth mindset. I'm like, how did we get here?
We lose track when we think about the kids we love, right?
Yeah, right. So I think that it's really important to remember that God is the God of her brain. And there was a lot of loss there. And God can restore it. And he's not just going to make it to where it's not as bad. He is able to do anything. And so I want him to do exceedingly and abundantly beyond all that I can ask or think or imagine. And so I've got to ask and I've got to think and I've got to imagine what could God do and then live out of that. So in that same way, I know that there is the ability for restoration and healing for my ex-husband, for people like him who have suffered tremendous abuse. There is, just like we talked about before, though, there's a level of humility and teachability that you have to have. Like you have to say, what I'm doing isn't working. I keep going to the hardware store to try to buy bread. It is not there. You know, like we keep doing the thing that doesn't work. We've got to humble ourselves and just even say, Lord, where are you? Where have I gone wrong? And how, show me what's right. So anyway, I think good things could happen. It's hard. And it definitely is a different kind of a story. And it's not an easy peasy story, but I think the things you fight the hardest for, the rewards are so rich. And so I think like for situations with my daughter and me, our relationship has been the hardest one of my life, even harder than the time of whatever that happened with my first husband. But I'm just believing God for his grace is more when more grace is needed.
Grace upon grace.
And so I think grace, that there's something really beautiful waiting on the other side of this really hard season.
Yeah. And you've lived it out in previous seasons. And so it's like you said, you have stomped on the promises. You've stood on them. And in those situations, they came to pass. So what about the new they hold? And so now here we are in a new one. I feel that so much personally. I'm just like, oh my goodness. Like, why is humans, like, it's so hard to believe for the season we're in, even when it's so clear. It's just, it's life. But, talking divorce as a Christian woman of God. I have a heart for how divorced people feel in churches. And I, as a pastor, hate the feeling that the church, Big C church, right? I just feel like when people do divorce, they sometimes don't feel like they can come anymore. And that it could not be more anti-biblical. It could not be
absolutely.
more. And so somebody who has been through it, lived it, 25 years ago, I'm sure it's still fresh in you. What would you say that the I won't say the church, but the Christian community, by and large, how do we hurt someone going through something gut-wrenching? And how do we help someone going through it?
Yeah. I think that the hurting, when I asked my pastor for help, he wouldn't help. He just said, it's all good. I'm like, well, then you go live with him as a 22-year-old girl who's like nowhere near as big or strong as this guy. Like they can't understand the fear as a man, and if you're afraid physically for your safety, I don't know, try to enter in, like, do more than just say it's fine, because it's not fine. And then when I had asked one of my friends if she would help me like pack up my stuff, because I had already gone back to the States. She's like, she felt like it was a spiritual issue. Like she was helping take part in my divorce if she went and got a couple things for me.
She's
and
betraying
like,
her own ethics.
States.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which I don't want people to do things that make them uncomfortable. But also, I'm kind of in a bind here. And she was like my closest friend there. And so I just think drawing closer and still saying, like, even because here's the problem. Not everybody's going to understand. Not everybody's going to agree. It is, like we said, just super tricky. I think what I struggle with is that some people are like, the quote, we fell out of love, or, people who they don't want to try. They're just like, we were better not married. Well, I struggle with that because that isn't what God says. Like, loving is a choice, and it's a thing that's going to happen when they're boring and when they smell, or they, have a health issue, or they lose their job. Like it's not that. And so where some of the shame was coming from feeling like I was lumped into people who just couldn't be bothered to be married, where in my situation, it was literally like life or death.
Life or death.
You know what I mean?
Yes, this is great. Yep.
You also have to come to terms with people not understanding, and that it feels bad. But who was also pretty doggone misunderstood was Jesus.
Our Lord and Savior. Yes.
Yep. Yeah. And so that you can go, okay, cool. Like I'm in really good company with people not understanding me. And it's hard because the church wants to take a stand and say, like, no, like reconciliation, like let's push for this.
Which you were for in the middle of it all, in the middle of being cheated on, in the middle of being abused, in the middle, you were still for that.
Yeah. But I just think that it's, sometimes I have counseled a lot of people who just want out, and wanting out feels like that's going to solve it. It's like the other day, like our house just flooded, and then I found a puppy, and I really wanted it because I really felt like the puppy is going to solve the house. Like I really, really want this puppy because it's going to fix it. And thankfully my husband's like, it is not going to fix it. It's going to make it worse. But so I think that as people, we can call anything abuse. I think that we like to spin things in our favor.
How do you feel like Christians can help someone walking through, let's say that, different than your situation, someone is getting out of a marriage because they are just done, right? Like, let's say there isn't biblical precedence or whatever, right? Like how, like there's still people and humans making their own choices. We're not a cult.
Right. Right.
Christian, we're not a cult. Right. And so people have to be free to do what they are going to do. And the church has to step in and love and be what we're called to be. let's say in the most like maybe shallow of circumstances, somebody leaving a marriage, how does the church still step up? How do we as Christians love the person who wants to be here but doesn't feel like they can anymore because of all the judgment and shame?
Okay. I think that divorce is part of their story. That doesn't mean it is their story. That doesn't mean they are their divorce. And so that's something that happened. It's in the past.
Yeah.
Going forward, what are their needs? What are they excited about? How can we just love them? They're still people. There's nothing different in that way. But if they're in the middle of it, I would say the most loving thing we can do is tell them the truth. Like, what is this a pattern of? Like, are you, do we tend to just jump out of things that we don't like all the time? Like, I think the most loving thing to do would be to counsel them towards reconciliation if there is in fact not abuse, and if it's not a safety issue. And it feels weird for me to say that, but I guess I was about reconciliation no matter. I mean,
it's so hard. That's why I love talking to you about it, because these are things I think about that I don't know answers to. And I haven't been through, but I love to hear your perspective on it. It's funny you would talk about the dog. You wanting to get a dog because I don't even like animals. No, I do.
Yeah.
I like dogs and I love the zoo, but I'm not an animal person. Like, I'm allergic, so I can't, and when COVID hit and we all went into quarantine, I started researching golden doodles.
Oh my gosh, yes.
And I don't know if you've seen the Instagram where the golden doodle is like snuggling the baby.
No,
but
I haven't.
It's the cutest thing you've ever seen. I'll send it to you later. And I was like, I need a dog. But this is what you're saying. We try and fix it all with a boyfriend, a marriage, better weight, better, status, better, more money, a golden doodle, whatever it is. And it's like,
and then getting out of the marriage. Like, it doesn't matter. That's just another way to fix it.
Oh man. Okay. So we'll wrap up here, but really quick, that's an incredible part of your story, but that's 25 years ago or however long. Then you met your now husband. You went through an adoption process, which I could do an entire one on adoption because I love it. And especially, did you say was your daughter foster to adopt?
Yes, she was foster to adopt.
Man, that's so awesome. Okay.
It was
and then
really
there's
hard.
Foster
parents are no joke. Like, that is serious.
Yeah.
That's amazing what they do.
We have someone in our church right now. She's a single woman. She's young, probably 25. I think she has 3 foster children right now.
Oh my goodness.
I'm just amazing. Like, oh man, what am I doing with my life? It's so awesome. I love that foster. And I used to be in YWAM. And and so I think we bonded over Thailand maybe at the conference we were at.
Oh my gosh, I love Thailand.
Oh, it's the best. But they're just pushing the foster movement. And I just think, I don't know if anything can be more Christian.
Right, exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Not that it doesn't come without its battles, like you said. But so then you went through this adoption process and then you struggled through the pain of infertility. And then you started a podcast, and we'll end on this because your podcast is called Mom Struggling Well. You talked about it at this conference we spoke at, and I just loved it because, correct me if I'm wrong again, but you said that you did not like moms, right?
I didn't like being a mom.
You didn't like being a mom? Okay, even better.
No, I tried so hard to be a mom. And then when I did, I was like, hold it. This isn't fun. Even a little bit.
Even a little bit.
In my mind, you listened to me, everything I said. You ate all the veggies that I prepared. Like, you are nowhere near as good as my imaginary kids. So... And I had 6 years to imagine kids, right? And
so because that was the infertility time, right? The 6 years. Oh, man.
So, and also adopting out of foster care and then adopting a kiddo with some attachment issues. Like, it just wasn't what I thought, which I think isn't that motherhood and life in general, right? And
I was just about to say, and in our entire life. Yep.
Yeah. So I just, a friend one time told me, the struggle is not going to go away. You just have to learn how to struggle well. And I was like, oh,
there it is.
Okay. And I got up and excused myself so I could go to the restroom. And I looked up momstrugglingwell.com to see if it was used. And I bought the URL in the bathroom because I'm like, oh my gosh.
No,
yes. I was like, the heavens opened up and the Lord was like, this shall be your next project. So I've been doing that for 5 years. And it's really helped me my husband even says, you are a way better mom than you used to be.
Serious? Just
interviewing people and asking like, how is it that you're doing this amazing thing? Like mentor me in the area of, whatever. I just see people, I love what they're doing. And so I'll ask them to share with us what they're doing. And it is really hard. I think though that we sometimes either say like, it's our kids are the problem and they're not the problem.
Okay.
Or we like elevate them to where like they're everything. And it's not that either. Like it's somewhere in the middle.
It's really good.
I think it's somewhere in the middle. So
it's amazing. Well, thank you so much. I could talk to you about infertility, mom, adoption, all of it for 2 more hours, but I'm going to let you go because your floors need help.
They do. Thank you so much for having me on. This was really fun.
Thank you for doing this. Thank you for giving me a more in-depth glimpse on all of this stuff. And I know it's going to really, really help some people and hopefully make some people really feel who have been through hard things, maybe in our 20s, right? Where we don't know what we're doing. Hopefully they feel just freed up to be loved and to recorrect and have a wonderful life.